Good morning, Mets fans, and happy Monday. Welcome to another week and another edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and hey, stop the presses. The Mets won a game in the month of June. Yes, last night the Mets defeated the Yankees 2-0 to end their winless month of June on a high note, because they were the first team in this young season to shut out the Yankees. So the Yankees were shut out last night, and the Mets won. It's like it's a big shock to the system. And I've been away for a couple of days, and did I miss anything? I think I did. A couple of moves after last night's game I want to talk about today, and kind of catches up as to what we have to look forward to on the week to come on today's Driving with Mr. Met. First and foremost, before we get into the Mets, I just want to say I'm really sad to read the news this morning that Shohei Ohtani, the offensive slash pitching star for the Angels, will likely need Tommy John surgery and will likely be out until 2020. That is really, really bummer news for a team that was on the rise and finally had some pieces around Mike Trout to give the best baseball player in the world a chance to compete for the playoffs this year. And it's just an unfortunate turn of events that Ohtani will be missing some time. So I wanted to just throw that out there. I hate injuries, but you know, it's part of the game, and as Mets fans, we know that all too well. Speaking of injuries, Cespedes was the talk of the town late last week, or the middle of last week, I should say, where there were rumors about, hey, he'll be back in time for the Subway Series, and awesome, this will be great, and no. He was not back in time for the start of the Subway Series. In fact, he started a rehab assignment on Friday, which the first game of which went well, and they followed that up on Saturday, where he exited the game early, and with hip pain or soreness or whatever, and he will remain sidelined and playing rehab games now in Florida, which is where he flew after he pulled himself out of the game in Binghamton. That's a bummer, because there was at least some hope that Cespedes would be back. Anthony Swarzak has returned, and he looked shaky last night at best, but he wasn't the story of last night's game. The story of last night's game was Seth Lugo and his partner in crime, Robert Gsellman. Both guys pitched unbelievably well. Lugo, every time he's been asked to, has stepped up admirably and filled in whatever role the team needed him to fill in. And last night it was a starting pitcher in place of Noah Syndergaard, who also, like Cespedes, was supposed to come off the DL for the Subway Series, but did not. And, you know, as much as I love Syndergaard, we didn't miss him last night, because Seth Lugo was on point. 6 shutout innings of 3-hit baseball, I believe, or 2-hit baseball. I don't know. He was really good. That's all that matters. And he turned the ball over to Robert Gsellman, who, despite Jose Reyes', and I'll get to him in a minute, despite Jose Reyes' best efforts to give the game away to the Yankees, Gsellman did not break, held down the fort, and finally handed the ball off to Anthony Swarzak, who had us all holding our breath in the 9th, but the Mets got the win, and that was important. The offense last night was provided by Todd Frazier, 2-run home run, who did, I guess it's worth noting, hit that 2-run home run after Jose Reyes extended an inning with a 2-out single, so it's not all bad, I guess, for Jose. There's one shining moment for him in the last 61 games, or whatever number of games the Mets have played this year. The Mets are still 6 games under 500, but they did nab their first W of the month. So here's to hoping that can sort of turn the tides a little bit. And on that note, the Mets decided to shake up the roster a little bit in an attempt to turn the tides. And some interesting moves, very interesting moves, I thought. Jose Reyes is batting like 131 or whatever he's batting. He is a defensive liability, and that's putting it mildly. And he can't steal bases anymore. He's been picked off more often than he's successfully swiped bags. Picked off and or caught stealing more often than he's been successful. I'm sorry, but he has absolutely zero surface value to this team, and frankly to any major league team at this point. And yet he remains on the roster while Adrian Gonzalez was unconditionally released after last night's Sunday night game. I don't get it. I mean, if I had to choose a bench guy, I'd keep Gonzalez over Reyes, and it wouldn't even be a second thought for me. I would have dropped Reyes in a heartbeat, and I would have kept Gonzalez. But the corresponding roster moves made some sense. The Mets did promote Dominic Smith from AAA Las Vegas. He will presumably take over the responsibilities as the first baseman for the big league club. I think from a glove perspective, he's just as good, if not probably at this stage of their career, these stages of their careers, better than Adrian Gonzalez was, at least defensively. Offensively, I remain very concerned about Dom Smith. In the hitter-friendly PCL, he's not even hitting 300, and he's batting 298. You know, it's more the same from last year. I mean, yes, he did have 9 home runs in just 46 or 45 some games that he played last year, but he didn't even bat 200. He batted like 198 on the third of the season that he played. I think the long-term plan here for this is that this was done as much to make room in AAA for Peter Alonso's promotion as anything else. Because Alonso's going to move from AA to AAA. If it hasn't been announced, it certainly will be very soon. I can't imagine him staying in Binghamton any longer. He's done everything he can possibly do there. I don't know that he has anything else to prove at the AA level. Seemed time to get him up to AAA, see if he can hit off of better pitching. So that move makes sense. The other roster move was the Mets DFA'd Jose Lobaton again, who seems to be on the revolving door. It's almost as though he's a member of Trump's cabinet, which I think is kind of funny. But Lobaton's gone, and in his place, the Mets are promoting Ty Kelly, our old friend Ty Kelly, who will take over a spot on the bench. Sort of can play everywhere, can Ty Kelly. Not anything special, no kind of a hitter there. I mean, he's not going to bring any value, really, other than to be able to sort of spot in anywhere in the infield and really anywhere on the corners in the outfield. The catching situation remains as it has been with Mesoraco and Plawecki holding down the fort as catchers, so that should be just fine. And I guess the curious part for me, other than Reyes remaining on the team, which I'm still not quite able to get my head around, the curious part is why promote Kelly and not Jeff McNeil? McNeil's numbers are ridiculous in the minors, and he probably, for me, deserves the promotion more than Ty Kelly does. But I can't see either of those guys getting much playing time unless the asterisk there, Asdrubal Cabrera's hammy is more than just a day-to-day thing. Unless Cabrera has to go on the DL, that'd be a scenario where I could see a more permanent role for one of these guys, at least short-term, where they'd be playing every day at second base. Wilmer Flores, speaking of second baseman, Wilmer Flores will be off the DL soon, it appears. This week we should have Wilmer back with the team. This stretch has been difficult, to say the very least. But, and I keep this but with a very large grain of salt. The Mets are 6 games under 500, but they've been playing really well. Certain facets of the game. Let me make that very clear. I'm not saying this is good. Okay, losing every game in a month up until the second week of that month is not good. But there have been aspects of every game that the team has been playing where the team has been playing very well. Whether it's the starting pitching, and the Mets are getting otherworldly starting pitching from Jacob deGrom, who, for my money, not just because I'm a Mets fan, but is the Cy Young, at least so far this season. Of course, because wins are so damn important to these idiot writers, it'll go to Max Scherzer because, his team scores when he pitches. Even though Jake has a lower ERA and a lower WHIP and is, quite frankly, the better all-around pitcher right now. Whatever. Starting pitching, as I was saying, has been really good during this stretch, and I think they really highlighted this last night. It was on Twitter, but they really highlighted it last night. The Mets have like a 2.16 staff ERA over this losing streak that they've had, and I think they were saying it's the first time since like 1916 that a team has had this low of an ERA without any wins. And I mean, it's just completely shocking, and it lines up with what we've all been feeling over the last 2 weeks or 10 days or so. Like, how is this happening? This is so unbelievable that this team cannot score. And this is where all of these roster shakeups, for me, are leading back to. Doing something is better than sitting back and doing the same thing with the same staff, because this offense is not scoring runs. And the last piece I want to talk about is Michael Conforto, who I read yesterday made some really foolish comments, in my opinion, about a potential demotion to AAA. Conforto said something along the lines of, I did that already. I went down to AAA last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was, and I don't have anything else I can learn there. I need to be up here hitting big league pitchers. And while I appreciate the sentiment, Mike, sorry, you've had 2 halves of a good season, and you haven't earned anything at this point. And it really bothers me that he doesn't want to go down. If you don't want to go down, do better. And the point that the manager needs to make at this juncture with Conforto and with really anybody else on the team is that if you don't put the team ahead of yourself, you don't belong on the team. And the kind of comment that says, I don't belong in AAA, is a me first comment. And it sounds like something that Scott Boras would suggest one of his clients say. I don't believe that Conforto is represented by Boras, but he may as well be talking like that. So I hope that Conforto is able to correct whatever it is that's wrong with him at the big league level, because we all know the Mets need his bat to contribute if they want to be successful. I still believe this team can be successful, because what happened in the beginning of the year, that 11-1, 12-2 stretch, yes, it's absurd to consider that to continue for an entire season, but it's also not unrealistic to believe that the team that did that can do something like that again. And the Mets still have the team that did that. They haven't gotten rid of any pieces. They haven't lost any pieces for this season. They're all going to be back. And if the facets of the game that continue to be played well get together and play well together, where the starting pitching and the offense gets on the same page and the bullpen decides not to blow it that day, they can sustain another 10, 11 game stretch where they win 8 or 9 games. I do think that's possible. That's what I'm hoping for. Is it crazy? Probably. Mets fans, we are crazy. But since I've rambled on for almost 13 minutes now, I'm going to call it a day. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. The Mets are in Atlanta for 2 games starting tomorrow night. So I'm looking forward to seeing if this team is able to build off of the victory they had on Sunday night, seeing what this roster shakeup does to the locker room, and seeing that this team can take one of these games from the Braves. If not both of them, that would be wonderful. So again, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met, and as always, let's go Mets.